Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and in a week where we have seen far too many names pulled out of containers, we promised that we did not select at random our guests tonight. They are Eric Devine and Philippe Bargil. But before we do the first football programme without Gianni Infantino this week, here is the latest news. In Liga, Caen and Rennes started the weekend off with a 1-1 draw, a match that hosts Rennes will feel unlucky not to have won, Caen having played with 10 men for the best part of an hour. On Saturday, Rennes got a much-needed point at home to Nice, 1-1 in the multiplex. Lille continued their bright start under Frédéric Antonetti, defeating Lorient 3-0 at home to move into 11th, just 3 points outside the European places. Montpellier also continued their steady climb away from trouble, holding off Guingamp 2-1, with Casimir Ninga once again amongst the goals. The result did see Guingamp move into the drop zone on goal difference, their fourth straight loss in the league. Elsewhere on Saturday, hosts Troyes and earned yet another draw, 1-1 against Bastia, a point which saw the Corsicans hold on to 17th place. Nantes and Toulouse played to a similar score at the Beaujour, with Emiliano Sala netting for the second week in succession. In the afternoon saw Monaco welcome the likes of Thomas Lemar and Jeremy Toulalon back from injury, and the two helped the club win 1-0 at home to Saint-Étienne, a result which sees them level on points with Angers in second. Angers themselves earned a point at home to Bordeaux in what is becoming a familiar routine, while 1-1 draw coming from a set piece. Romain Thomas heading home Billy Fonfon's corner deep in the second half. Marseille, meanwhile, continued their struggles at home as they could only draw against Gazélec at the Velodrome 1-1. Paris Saint-Germain got their inevitable result, a win, although a few would have expected the matchup with Lyon to be as decisive as the 5-1 thrashing that it was. Elsewhere, the draws for both the European Championships and the knockout rounds of the Champions League and Europa League competitions were made over the past few days. France will be facing Albania, Romania and Switzerland next summer, while PSG have drawn against Chelsea in a rematch of last season's thrilling tie. While in the Europa League, Marseille have drawn Athletic Bilbao and Saint-Étienne have Basel. And that's all for this week. For your latest breaking headlines, head on over to our website and our Twitter page. Both links are in the description of this video. Also, feel free to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Take us on the go. Each week is uploaded around an hour and a half after the live show on YouTube. We start this week with the champions who pulled off another impressive win this weekend as they thumped Lyon 5-1 at the Parc des Princes. It's almost a given that they will win the league this season with their 17-point lead already, Philip. But the real question is, can PSG go the entire season unbeaten?
That's the main goal that they have to maintain all season. There's another quite interesting record that they should be eyeing right now. I just noticed this when I did this Troyes versus Arles Avignon comparison. Is that I compared since Ligue 1 went back to 20 clubs in 02-03, so that would be 12 years ago, the maximum amount of points. The record holders are PSG, 2 seasons ago, 89. So they could be the first side who win a league with 90. But not only is that if they do as well in the second half of the season than they did in the first half, which I don't think they will, because of the Champions League, because of injuries, because of basically being resting on their laurels. And why shouldn't they? They've already won the league after all. They could reach 100 points. Now, a lot have been said. L'Équipe did a comparison between the Lyon side of I think it was 2005, 2006, and this one, because Lyon, it was their highest scoring they finished the season with the highest amount of points of the Lyon era, which was seven wins, I think it was, with 84 points. So basically, I mean, I don't think people are going to hold their breath if they lose a games and say, well, so what? Doesn't change the aim of the season. The aim of the season is obviously to come closer to the Champions League. So not it's not even getting into the quarterfinals. It's getting in the semi-finals as a minimum. But I really do believe that the record books will speak for themselves. It is important to have a side that hasn't lost domestically during the whole season. But you don't especially remember those sides. I mean, we do remember the Invincibles of Arsenal. I think it was in 2003. But what we will remember is the record amount of points. And if they come close, like saying 95, people will remember that and say, "Wow, this team, yeah, basically rocked this league, like being so completely superior to every other side, which is currently the case." So it'll be interesting to see if I'm not really worried about the last two games of the season. I've got the Coupe de la Ligue against Saint-Étienne on Wednesday, and the last game on next weekend, the final weekend of the year 2015. But more second half of the season. Let's see how they attack those games, and I really do believe that Blanc will rest a couple of players before and after the Chelsea games, and then quarterfinals if they progress. And I sincerely hope they do progress, as PSG have basically improved as a side, and Chelsea have regressed as a side. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Blanc manages this whole thing.
I think it's an interest. Just before I move on to chat to Eric about this, I think it's an interesting point you make about the record points total, because if you're comparing it to something like England, where obviously there's the Arsenal's Invincibles, it's not really well known or spoken about often enough that the record total in the Premier League is 95 points, done by Chelsea the year after that. And that's not really mentioned as often as the Arsenal Invincibles, that team that couldn't be stopped, etc., etc. So I'm not sure if it might be different on the continent, but I think that going a whole season unbeaten might be a real cherry on top of the enormous cake they will be having. But Eric, I just want to bring you in on this. How big of a season would it be if Paris Saint-Germain went unbeaten in the league?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nathan. I think that the last unbeaten season in Europe, among the more highly regarded leagues, I believe, is Porto's undefeated season a couple of years ago, and that was certainly given the most attention in terms of their achievements around that time. And they had done well to win the Europa League around the same era as well, but again, the undefeated season is what they talked about, and I think that makes an apt comparison, because much like Portugal, Ligue 1 can be a relatively top-heavy league in terms of having familiar faces in Europe and in the Champions League. You know, the big three there, and Braga as well at times. There's somewhat of a correlation if we look back at the last 10 years or so to Paris Saint-Germain, Marseille, and Lyon as well. So I think it would be a huge achievement, and it is something I actually predicted before the season. If you listen back to the first show of the season, I say that, and I get a little bit of stick from you too, but so far so good. Yeah, I think that the way that, like I said, back then, I think that another year of playing together makes this team really click, and Serge Aurier has been all the difference. That was really the sort of the one weak spot that they had. Thiago Motta still doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down, and it's impressive. They've definitely been tested in terms of the results they've had. I mean, the draw against Angers, going down to 10 men against Lille. Montpellier played them pretty tough, actually, even though they ended up winning that match. So it would be a real achievement, I think, especially in a league that's as defensively oriented as Ligue 1 is. Yeah.
My worry still is, I think that because the Champions League takes precedent, they might take one hit. It's at this point in the season, it has to be something that you have to consider, because if you're halfway through and you've not been beaten, and you've played every team at least once, I know they've got obviously one more team to play before the winter break, but it's definitely on. But Philip, we know PSG are good. They've been good for a number of years now. But what's different about them this season that's making them unstoppable?
Probably not being as not so motivated last season. Last season was basically about the Champions League and whoever turns up on a Saturday. This season you see that players are much more focused, shall we say, especially defensively. I think the back two of the Brazilian back two of Thiago Silva and David Luiz have a huge responsibility in that. You basically have the nucleus. It looks more professional, and it's all about getting the points, but also it's also about playing well. And I think that having this some kind of rivalry, for instance, at left back between Kurzawa and Maxwell, it really does bode well for the team. And I think the players also do realise that they did not play at the maximum of their capabilities last season, and it did show sometimes lack of professionalism in some away games, where you actually thought that the minnows, let's call them minnows now, that PSG are so massive, actually deserved to beat them more than whereas PSG would win that game, but the other side would have played so well, defended so well, be so organised that you almost wanted them to beat them. A bit like when they went to Angers, because Angers were really well organised defensively and tried their best to keep the game a competition. And it worked. I mean, it stayed 0-0. But I still think the players really do realise that last season was not as good as they could do, and they came much more stronger this season.
Eric, what do you think has been different about PSG this season? And on that, can anyone come near them in the seasons to come? Is this going to be a theme for years to come in Liga?
I think that injuries have helped. We talked about the defense. David Luiz, Thiago Silva both, missed out on decent chunks of the season last year. Having the two of them playing together as a consistent central defensive pairing, I think has made a huge difference. I think Kevin Trapp, again, he's had his mistakes, thinking about that Real Madrid match, but in terms of a keeper that's built to succeed in Ligue 1, being a superb reflex keeper, I think he's proven himself to be an upgrade on Salvatore Sirigu. I think we can't discount that. I think the fact that at left back, Kurzawa's been able to provide an alternative to Maxwell that has a degree of capability that we didn't see last season. Luca Dean, barely got a shout last season. I think that the acquisition of Angel Di Maria, as we saw yesterday, makes a tremendous difference going forward. I think that he in particular is a player who's motivated to prove himself to be what kind of top-class player that he was before he made his move to United. I think that the midfield plays in a much more dynamic and fluid style than it has. I mean, part of that's a little bit down to Ibrahimovic playing a little bit more slowly, but also to the fact that there's a bit more variation in terms of the way that the players attack. Last year it ended up being a lot of some of the same in terms of the way that Pastore or Lucas got about with the ball, but Di Maria is wanting to do a bit more work, and that allows other players, particularly the likes of Verratti and Matuidi, to get forward a little bit easier. I know Verratti's injured at the moment, but yeah, there's just not only the attitude, but the way that the players interact with each other on the pitch is there's a real marked difference. There's a cohesion. This team's been together now, the core of it, for 3 to 4 years, and I think that they finally realized that, as some of these players ease into their late 20s and early 30s, they're starting to run out of chances to have the level of success that they came to this club to achieve. And that immediacy is apparent in the way that they're approaching each and every single match, which was not the case last year, especially in the league. And in terms of the future, Monaco have a lot of really interesting players. If those can come together in the next 2 or 3 years, I think we could really see something going on there. The likes of a Fabinho, Thomas Lemar, Bernardo Silva. But as we've seen this summer, they have no problem getting rid of those players if the right price is being offered for them. I think Lyon, when Fekir comes back, and they can sort out whatever sort of personal dramas is going on at the club, have the tools to be successful. But in reality, to actually challenge PSG for a title, if they're playing as focused as they have been this season, absolutely not, unfortunately.
Philip, just one last bit on PSG, and particularly their manager, Laurent Blanc. Is it still really Champions League semis or bust for the manager?
I think he's earned a bit more respect from the dressing room this season. He does look to be more relaxed about the whole thing. Every season he was like, okay, you'll be staying next season depending on how you do in the Champions League. Winning the league is like you just have to do it because you've got all the resources, and winning the cups, I mean, again, you're expected to do that. But what he really needs to do every single season is perform well in the Champions League, which is, shall we say, more or less the case in the group stages. I would say. It'll show against the big sides. I think he showed how limited he was against Benitez, who himself played a very tactically limited 4-4-2, and it worked on PSG, which was extremely frustrating. But in the Bernabeu, PSG did show some kind of fight, and probably deserved more than this defeat. But I do not think. A defeat before the semi-finals would necessarily mean that a sack, probably because there'll be maybe a bit more thinking before getting rid of your manager, and then asking other people to manage them, and then them saying no. That will be a big issue. But I do believe that the owners are fully behind Blanc as it stands, and I don't think a decision will be made before this summer at least. And I frankly cannot see him being sacked at this moment in time. It does look unlikely, but things do move extremely fast in football,
especially at the big clubs as well. And it's good to hear that maybe finally there's getting a little bit more backing than he has in the past, and something Liga themselves catching up might be a topic we'll talk about in a couple of weeks or so. But we move on as a backlash of that abysmal result in the capital for Lyon. Their president, Jean-Michel Aulas, has revealed that Hubert Fournier will be in charge for, quote-unquote, at least 2 more games. That is the game in the club against Tours, and the final league game of the before the winter break against Gazlek Ajaccio. Eric, is he already on borrowed time? We said it was a free hit, but 5-1 is a bit of a stinging one to take.
I mean, I was really impressed with the way that he adapted and fit the players into the 4-4-2 diamond that Remy Gard had established 2 seasons ago last year. Things looked really good. It looks like the players are playing for each other. The team were exciting. Nabil Fekir was, being hailed as one of the best young players in Europe. Alexandre Lacazette was scoring for fun. Things tailed away a little bit towards the end of the season, but it's a long season. They're young players. You take it with a grain of salt. Now, this season, obviously, Fekir's injury has been a huge issue, but the way in which he's setting this team out week after week, in terms of personnel, in terms of tactics, he looks like a manager that's grasping at straws. and that can't be inspiring confidence in the players, and that's the issue. I mean, now he's experimenting with this 4-3-3 with Grenier, and that looked decent in the week against Valencia. I do have to admit that, but persisting with Yanga and Biwa when he's got the likes of Rose and Kone as options. At center back, Yanga and Biwa threw up another horrible match. I'm sorry, I don't know what's become of this, player who is so influential at Montpellier, but he's just not getting it done.
You're talking about the Valencia game or the PSG game?
The PSG game.
PSG game, okay.
No, I thought the defense played well against Valencia, actually. But yeah, yesterday against the champions, they looked off the pace again. And Henri Bedimo was getting done time and again, but again, I know he's limited by injuries. He's forced to play Jeremy Morel at center back, but is he really? I mean, would things have looked a little bit better if he had gone with a back line of, say, Morel, Kone, and Rose, with natural center backs. I do think, though, that in terms of borrowed time, that Fournier deserves to have some time with the full squad at his disposal. I mean, the way the injuries have stacked up, particularly in the last couple of weeks, is almost more than you can bear to look at. I mean, looking at the list of injuries, the players were out yesterday: Lacazette, Titi, Jallet, Fekir, Valbuena. You can make a case for Guedes Fofana. Again, he's a very long-term injury, but we're talking half the first 11 are out, and to judge a manager based on those results. Remember, this team's still only 5 points off the Champions League places in Ligue 1. I think would be very, very harsh, especially with how incandescent Fekir has been over the past, or had been over the past year prior to his injury. It would be really, really unfair, I think, for Fournier to get the sack at this point in time. But even with that being said, I really have a lot of issues with the choices he's making in terms of personnel, and even now making a tactical switch.
But what happened? What happened at Valencia? I mean, it did look like. I mean, to me, it was the most surprising result of the 8 groups, quite frankly. And there were a few shockers. Was it Fournier just playing his simple football? Was it just the players just showing up, or was it Valencia being quite bad? I mean, it something must have gone right to win at the Mestalla 2-0.
I mean, kind of a mix of things for me, honestly. Valencia aren't an exceptional attacking team. Paco Alcacer can have his moments, but we saw even against Lyon at the Gerland, there was something of an opportunism to the way that they won that game. They're very much a smash and grab counter-attacking team, and if Lyon were set up to counter that, which they were, then it's going to be very hard for Valencia to get things done. And that's what really frustrates me here at this point in time, is that Fournier, if he's setting up against a specific opponent, in this case Valencia, it's obvious that he has the tactical acumen and the motivational acumen to get the best out of these players. So why can't he apply the same dedication and thought process to Ligue 1 week in and week out? I know you can't really budget for missing a player of the caliber of Fekir over the course of his season, but still, it's a frustrating set of circumstances because now Lyon are winless in their last 5 in the league, but again, a lot of that's down to injuries. Jallet in particular, I think, is a huge miss. So Fournier can be maddening, but at the same time, I think it would be unfair to give him the sack at present.
Well, it's interesting to think back to that game against Valencia. I mean, I listened to an interview with Gary Neville about it, and he was saying that they could tell from the first 10, 15 minutes that Lyon was set up to counter past their defence that was playing too high, and the wing-backs were playing too high, and it was almost 4-on-2 sometimes on the counters, and it just looked like Lyon were always going to score. But the more frustrating thing about that result is a terrific result as well, even though Valencia have their own injury problems and such, and and obviously a new manager coming in trying to install as much as he can in about a day and a half. But they win that game, and if they'd have got a result against Ghent last week, they're through. Like, miraculously, they're through in that group because the result at Ghent against Zenit doesn't matter if Leon had beaten them. So that just adds to this thing of that he wouldn't be under any pressure if he managed to get a result in that Ghent game because you'd be through in the Champions League. They'd be going to the new stadium with Champions League football in the belt. The Liga, it's a shame that we're losing games, but we're only, like you said earlier, Eric, we're 5 points off for Europe. We might not be winning games at the moment in the league, but at least we're still in the Champions League. We're still in some of the cups. We've got that chance there. So there's always the chance for something. So, but then we talk about all the issues that the players seem to have with the management, and Olas hasn't really helped Fournier, has he, this week, Philip, by coming out and saying such a thing?
No. No, and I think it hasn't been well managed, but you can never really control how people are going to go to press because there's always going to be someone on the pounce to make to make a story and write something, and it will cause unrest. But I completely agree with Eric that Fournier is a talented and competent manager, and that the injuries do play their part. They've been really unlucky about that, and he has shown that he can win the big ones as well. I don't think I heard or read anything about the ultras wanting him out. I mean, he did beat the rivals 3-0, losing at PSG 5-1. Honestly, I don't recall which season it was, but I think Lyon lost at the Parc des Princes 5-0. It was probably 2 seasons ago. Probably not last season. I'll have to check. Let's. I mean, to me, this week is probably going to sound extremely controversial, but I think it's been quite positive because you do win at Valencia. Okay, you lose at PSG, but you just prove yourselves that you can go to an away game in a Champions League game and win away from home, and not a lot of Ligue 1 sides can do that. And when they do get their players back, I'm sure that not a lot of sides will be able to beat them. It's just a very very unfortunate and just not very good set of weeks, which is turning into months for Lyon. And I really do believe that they wish that 2015 would end very very quick now, so they can start anew.
Yeah, I just to me, again, speaking a little bit as a fan here, it's unbelievably frustrating. I thought Lyon had a great close season. I was a little frustrated with the loss of NG, but bringing in the likes of Darder, Yanga Mbiwa, Morel, Raphael, these are players who have vast experience, especially the likes of Raphael and Morel at the very top level. Claudio Bovu is a proven striker in Ligue 1. I thought they'd done really well to add to their squad depth, and I was fairly excited about the season coming up, but it's really an incredible set of circumstances if you think about it. If you were to think before the season, Valbuena as well, I should mention, about the players that Lyon were bringing in the close season, you'd say, wow, this club is serious about making a statement in Europe. This club is serious about continuing to be the force that they were last year in Ligue 1. Albeit not at Paris Saint-Germain's level, but to be the definitive second place team, to be the Borussia Dortmund, if you will, of Ligue 1. And the way that it's come off, particularly over the past 3 months in the Champions League campaign, is, I think, beyond a nightmare scenario. And it's frustrating again because I understand that there needs to be some level of accountability for it, but I mean, who? The players, the coach? I mean, it's really not easy to pinpoint how this once promising season's gone wrong.
And I think that the reason that he's come out and said that is the easiest time really for any club across the continent other than a Premier League club to get rid of your manager is probably just before the winter break. Gives a man time to get in, time to maybe put a couple of ideas across before the league all starts up again, and then you've got a window starting again. So I'm not surprised the rumours are swirling, and if he loses either of those games, I can't see him coming back, unfortunately.
I still don't think he'll get the sack.
I always think he doesn't necessarily wield the axe very often, but I'm getting that feeling. Yeah.
I mean, I would disagree. He went through so many managers during.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, there were
yeah.
4 different managers who won the titles of the 7 titles.
A lot of yeah.
I don't think a lot of them were sacked. Actually, I don't think.
That's what I'm thinking. A lot of them left.
Yeah, I think Le Guen, Houllier, and others. Perrin, I think Perrin he had vast differences with Aulas, but I don't think it necessarily ended on bad terms. I think it was basically the managers wanting to do something else rather than win Ligue 1 dead easily, just like PSG are doing. But obviously Lyon didn't have the same resources as PSG do currently. But he does tend to give managers a lot of time to, even when the fans are on the manager's back, he just calmly waits and see, and if it has to be done, it's done. I know that a lot of Lyon fans wanted Claude Puel out much sooner than when he actually went out.
Well, yes, that was apparent. The way he interacted with the players, yeah, he needed to go when he did. That was a good decision.
Which is why I'm thinking that to come out like that, it is not uncommon, but at the same time, it does seem like he is teetering on the edge. But we will move on to the draw for the Champions League and the Europa League that was done this earlier today. In fact, much as seeing Gianni Infantino during these draws is like Groundhog Day, PSG get Chelsea yet again for the 3rd year in a row. Philip, do you think they can get past the Premier League champions this time again?
Oh, I hope so. No, I sincerely hope so. I mean, like I said in the first part of this program, the team has improved and the Chelsea side has regressed. I mean, I watched. I didn't watch Valencia versus Lyon. I watched Chelsea versus Porto a bit of the first half because I was actually expecting Porto to knock out Chelsea, and they actually started the brightest. Chelsea scores this amazingly lucky goal, but once in a while it's good to see penalty area refs making a useful call. It was basically Diego Costa hitting the ball against the keeper. The ball rebounds off a defender and goes over the line before another defender, or maybe the same defender, can clear it off the line. Apart from that, Chelsea, I don't find them at all threatening up front. I don't think Hazard is playing like 50% like what he could be doing. Never thought that Willian was such a threatening player up front. Diego Costa can easily be put in either Thiago Silva or David Luiz's back pockets. The only thing they do have on PSG is the keeper. I do rate Courtois very, very highly. The defense, I don't see Zuma. Zuma is a good up and coming defender, but no. Let's be honest. I mean, if PSG can't beat Chelsea, just don't go around and saying our ambition is to win the Champions League. I'm not talking about Chelsea every season, but that Chelsea is particularly not threatening at all. And well, I just hope you agree, Nathan. Otherwise, I've been watching the wrong teams, be it PSG or Chelsea.
I do agree. They've just gone behind as well to Leicester City in the Monday night.
Oh, good.
So that's a good timing to talk about.
Good for the confidence.
My worry at the moment is that Chelsea are playing very poorly. There just doesn't seem to be any influence in attack. They seem to be letting a goal in, and Mourinho doesn't really have a plan of any idea of how to fix it or who to bring off or who to come on. But I have an annoying feeling that it will change over the Christmas period and they'll be all right in January, February, and they might be coming back. As a Manchester United fan, it'll probably be when we play them over the Christmas period. I guarantee it. They'll all of a sudden come out of the shell just for that game, and then it will start going ahead. But at the moment, it looks like a favourable tie, really, doesn't it, Eric, for PSG?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of the group winners, considering the fact that they could have faced almost certain elimination from, at the hands of one of the Spanish teams to progress, or the likes of a Bayern Munich. Yeah, I think it's a very favorable draw. My one issue, particularly against Chelsea, is that I really hope that Blanc doesn't persist with playing Cavani on the left. In the form that Ivanovic has been in this season, they need to have a player who's going to get at Ivanovic with his pace. I'd rather see a lineup of Cavani or Ibra in the middle, with Di Maria and Lucas to either side of him, to use some of their pace and aggression to really get at that Chelsea backline. I just feel like, as we saw with the matches against Real Madrid, their right backs are basically able to leave Cavani in all sorts of space because he was too slow going forward, and to sort of shift into the middle to put pressure on Matuidi and to put pressure on Ibrahimovic, and to really stop the PSG attack, and that was what made what Benitez had done there so successful. And also I think that it's probably time for Kurzawa to replace Maxwell in these big matches as well, particularly against Chelsea. If they can come out with a pace-driven attack and get at Chelsea, I think this could really be something of a walkover for the French champions. It's not a you wouldn't think that hearing the two names on paper if you're a casual observer, but if Blanc makes the right tactical tweaks, I think he could really stick it to Chelsea.
I think it's a good point, and I want to jump on that point about Ivanovic, Eric, and Chelsea fans. If you're at your keyboards, get ready, because I'm probably going to annoy a lot of you, because I've never rated Branislav Ivanovic as a right back, and I've seen him lots of times. The problem he has is, like you say, with pace. Anyone with any matter of pace seems to get at Ivanovic, and he just fouls them. There's been numerous times I've seen him in the Premier League where he probably definitely should have had 2 bookings from just little niggly fouls. He gets 5 or 6 a game against pacey wingers, and if you put Angel Di Maria against Branislav Ivanovic, or even you might have to take him off. So let's say 45 minutes. It's going to destroy Chelsea because he's a centre-back, really. I wouldn't be surprised if, much like they have sort of tried it at times, they'll play Babaraman at left-back and Azpilicueta at right-back to combat that, because he's a much more competent full-back. But PSG have a really...
I actually don't rate Ivanovic as a centre-back. I think it was during the Ancelotti years where Chelsea were in a bit of a rut in the Christmas period. Not that kind of rut, but just not winning 1 in 5 games or something like that. And Ancelotti did try Ivanovic at centre-back. I think it was with Terry. I'm not sure. And it just didn't work. I just feel that his what he offers going forward is a complete waste as a centre back, and that right back should be his natural position. He's not a good cross of the ball or anything like that, but he just adds something going forward, and that could be one of the rare, shall we say, advantages Chelsea, or rare threats that Chelsea could offer to score 1 or to score a couple of goals. So in that respect, I fully expect him to play at right back. But I can see Di Maria beating him to the ball, being quicker than him, being more technical than him, and possibly keep cool. And on that occasion, we really need to PSG really need to keep an eye on Diego Costa and just not give in to his provocations, which he does every single game and every time he has the ball, basically. It's extremely infuriating to watch, because he is a good. I mean, he is a good centre forward, all said and done. But his I don't know where his. I'm not quite sure what he's playing at, but when he first came into England, he was brilliant, and now it's just what's the most entertaining part of his game is what stupid thing did he do this week?
It seems like he's regressed to old Atletico Madrid, Diego Costa, before he went and exploded with the goals. But I will, very quickly before we move on, come to the defence of Ivanovic as a centre-back. I think he's good, but you pointed out why it didn't work with Ancelotti, because he played with Terry. Neither have pace, and they were both exposed by anyone who had anything about them. Someone with Cahill, Zuma beside him with a bit of pace, he'd be all right. But we will move on to the ones that the draw for the Europa League. Eric, Marseille have a pretty tricky one, don't they, with the Basque side, Athletic Bilbao?
Yeah, Bilbao they had a little bit of trouble earlier in the season in the qualifying rounds of the Europa League. And to start the season, I think they lost 4 of their first 5 or something. People were talking about relegation. Obviously, they've come off from that. They're sitting mid-table now. They've done really well. They have the young player Inaki Williams, and they brought in Raul Garcia from Atletico in the off-season. I'd say, on the whole, this is a strong, experienced team, and they have a lot of ways they can hurt you. They're very solid defensively. The likes of Adariz is a striker who's continued to perform. Even I think he's 34, 35 years old. And yeah, there's just a lot of balance on this team. It's a tough, strong squad, and I'd be very surprised if Marseille, given their inconsistencies, were to be able to get past them.
Philip, what do you think to Marseille's draw? It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite tough. I spoke to a couple of Marseille fans today. They're not particularly happy with that draw. They thought they could have had something a bit not as strong as Athletic Bilbao. It's a great draw. It's a great draw on paper. I think it's 2 sides that will be in the mid-table spots. Sorry, all season, especially come February, March. I'm not sure how easy it will be. It depends how easy it will be in regards to the Champions League spots. Who's going to take it more seriously? My gut feeling is that Marseille, they did get out of the group stages, which is a good thing. Let's be honest, they were in quite a state when Bielsa left, and it's good to see them at this level. And I don't think it'll come across as a disaster if Marseille do get knocked out by Bilbao, a very capable Spanish side. So I don't think I've talked to anyone yet saying that Marseille are the favourites, and I think this underdog label sort of fits them quite well. Because if they lose, okay, well, no surprise. If they win, it's a good surprise. So I think it could be a very interesting tie, that one.
Then in a weird way, it's almost a positive draw. But I did watch Atletico Bilbao at the weekend against Atletico Madrid, and I thought they were very impressive against a side that joint top of La Liga and in the Champions League last 16, and created plenty of chances, solid defensively. Obviously got one of the top young centre-backs in European football in Aymeric Laporte, who's been linked with a number of clubs. But yeah, that'll be a difficult one for Marseille. I think it'd be nice to see them through, but that is a really tough one to call. Eric, Saint-Étienne get Basel. What do you think is that? That one's, again, maybe a little bit difficult to call.
Yeah, I think that Saint-Étienne really seemed to have lost a lot of their form in recent weeks. I kind of wonder whether the issues with injury and consistency that they've had over the past few weeks is really starting to catch up to them. Barrett looks like he was starting to find his feet. He's lost for the season. Kevin Theophile-Catherine will be back for this matchup, which I think is a positive thing. But there's so much chopping and changing going on in that side that it's a little bit problematic for me. And I think that Basel have shown themselves to be a very accomplished club. Liverpool fans will be only too familiar with their exploits from last season. They were in the Europa League, I want to say, semifinals 3 seasons ago when Chelsea won the competition. So this is an experienced veteran team. that is used to being in this position, whereas a lot of these players with Saint-Étienne to be in the knockout stages of this competition in particular is not something that they've experienced before. I mean, they've been in the Europa League a handful of times over the past seasons, but last season did very poorly in the group stage. The season before that were knocked out in the playoff rounds. So, I think Basel in particular, they're the type of club who place a high priority on European competition, and we'll only be too happy to have seen the name of Saint-Étienne pop up from the ping pong balls of Gianni Infantino.
Philip, what do you think? It's a tough one. Again, it's not one of those sides you really want to face in Basel in European competitions.
Well, especially since they're hosting the final, so I'll be extra motivated to win it. Actually, they're very capable side are Basel. On paper, I would say Saint-Étienne are favourites because of the quality of the players, but we can just see that the players are absolutely knackered from a fine European campaign, winning at Dnipropetrovsk, not losing both games against Lazio, basically qualifying before the last match day, which is a great achievement for French football. It doesn't happen that often, but they are completely knackered, and I think they'll give it their best shot. And if they do that, they will progress. At the expense of the league, of course. Then again, Basel being at home for the final, maybe it changes a bit of things. I still think Saint-Étienne have the best, shall we say, and the best position to progress, though.
Yeah, sorry, Eric, you want to make a point?
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize also that the Swiss season is not dissimilar from the Russian season. Basel's first league match is not till February 6th after the winter break. So Saint-Étienne may, at the time these ties come around, have a little bit of an advantage at being in a bit more competitive form, which I still would slightly favor Basel just due to the fact that they're already in 10 points up in their league and will be more willing to focus on this competition. But we've seen that match sharpness really hurt teams from Eastern Europe in the past. So that could be a mitigating factor for the way that this tie shapes up. But let's not forget, this is a team that did win away at Fiorentina. One of the better teams in Italy we've seen. So there's a lot of talent in Basel, and I would still give them the edge, even with that match sharpness.
Well, I think Philip made a good point that we should credit Saint-Étienne for getting out of a slightly sticky group, and it's good to see that at least a couple of teams made the second round. Although we'd hoped that Monaco would do it, but never mind. But onto the first sighting of Gianni Infantino this week for the group stages of the European Championships drawn for. Earlier on Saturday, the hosts were drawn in a favourable group with Albania, Romania, and Switzerland. Philip, what do you think to that group for Les Bleus?
Comfortable. No, very, very, very easy, and not that easy because Romania, I think, will not be as easy to beat as it looks like, especially if it's the opening game of the competition at the Stade de France. There'll be a lot of talk around it. We still don't know if Benzema will be needed or not. Albania, I can see an easy 3 points, and the Swiss, it really does depend on how the players, what state of mind they're in. It could be extremely boring, like in 2006 and 2008. It could be just absolutely fantastic, like at the last World Cup, where we won 5-2. It just doesn't. Just feels like a group that we should win 3 out of 3, and then who knows? Because we have this wonderful format of 24 teams. With 6 groups, we have no idea who will finish third of groups C, E, F, D, G, or H, even if it doesn't exist. This is, just let's finish top of our group and see what happens next. That's basically it. But it could have been a better. I would say it could have been a more interesting draw, shall we say? Like having one of the home nations, that could have been quite fun. But they aren't really any tough groups. I mean, they're all quite good. This is probably the weakest one, if I'm being completely honest. And we should win all 3 games of those if we're serious about winning the tournament, which we should be, because we are one of the best squads in this competition.
Yep, and I would agree with that. And I think before I get your thoughts on the group, Eric, I did a little bit of research earlier about France's potential run to the European Championship final. If they finish top and other top seeds finish top, they would face the best third team from either C, D, or E, which would either be possibly someone like Croatia, the Czech Republic, Ukraine, or Sweden if you look at the groups. They could even face an easier tie after that in the quarters, because they would face the runner-up of Group B, which is England's group, or F, which could be someone like a Russia or a Wales, or it could be an Austria or an Iceland for a quarter-final game. And then the semis, they would then play someone, if they would progress, someone like England or Italy. They would probably be avoiding Germany and Spain if they finish top of their group until the final, Eric. That gives France.
What about Belgium?
I think you avoid Belgium as well. I'm not 100% certain, but I think
would they be knocked out by England or Germany?
It would be the German side. I think Belgium will be with Spain and Germany. So that's an awkward side of it. So with that in mind, Eric, this is a fantastic opportunity for France, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a shame that they're the team's sort of in transition now. I mean, trying to figure out where how this team's gonna line up. You've got some fantastic players like Paul Pogba and Blaise Matuidi, but Antoine Griezmann. But I think they're the whole Benzema and Valbuena affair has really thrown the team into disarray. It's not as if there's ready-made replacements for these two. Should they be either suspended or mentally unfit for this? I mean, you could have made an argument for maybe 10 months ago for Fekir playing on the right and Lacazette starting up top for France. But you certainly can't make that argument now based on their injuries and lack of form this season. It's frustrating because I think you make a great point that France, especially considering the fact that they're playing at home, could be one of the favorites. But the events of the past month or so with these two players, it really makes me question that. In terms of the draw, yeah, I mean, there's some tricky opponents being thrown up. Croatia in particular is not a side I would particularly be wanting to face were I Didier Deschamps. The Czech Republic, showed themselves to be pretty dangerous as well. But I do agree with Philip. I think that not 7 or 9 points to top the group is a given. I think that Albania and Romania were fairly resolute in defense, but I think that even without the likes of Valbuena and Benzema, that the France just have too much going forward. If you look at the likes of Matuidi being able to contribute from midfield, Anthony Martial, the way he started for the national team has been fairly impressive as well. Andre Pierre-Gignac can be an option. There's just too much talent for France not to progress from this group at the top of it.
Philip, what do you think now you've heard France's potential route to the final? Is that a realistic goal for them now?
Oh yeah, said so quite a few many times. That other sides are just not. I don't feel anyone being extremely confident of winning the competition. There seems to be an air of welcoming minnows, but the big boys don't seem to be there. There was a lot of talk about having those 24 sides, so having a lot of, shall I say, mediocre sides, but not much has been said about the fact that, for instance, a country like Northern Ireland actually won their group, and that Romania did finish second, and Iceland did finish did finish above Holland. This has been really the tournament of the big sides not really turning up for the qualifiers, and you don't see them, this I can't wait to be there kind of thing from the players. It looks it really does look like being extremely focused on the league and then play the Euros. It doesn't really, you don't get this this kind of World Cup feeling that you do when you, obviously you shouldn't, because it's just the Euros expanding to 24 sides, which should actually make the quality of the tournament decrease. But I think we've got as good a chance as anyone. I don't feel any confidence from coming from how England are playing, how Spain are playing. Spain are still recuperating from this big Brazilian disaster, shall we say. I've watched Germany many times, and it just does not click the same way as it did in Brazil. Italy, you never know. They were in the final 4 years ago, at the last Euro, sorry. So yeah, I really don't see why people would not be confident of France winning the whole thing. And I think we do have this advantage, is that when the players are bothered, we can beat anyone, literally anyone. So it'll be a coin toss, obviously, but I really don't see why we wouldn't make a semi-final at least.
It's difficult to not see France making at least that far in the competition. You mentioned a minute ago, Eric, that Benzema might be missing the tournament. Obviously, he's banned by the French Football Federation this week. Do you not think with the recent, I know I've criticised him before, but the recent form of Giroud might be enough for France if he carries on that kind of form?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, Giroud has been doing very well for Arsenal, particularly in the last month or so, but I just really don't see him, particularly with how static his play is, making sense in a 4-3-3. I think he handicaps that team, much in the same way that, observers of Ligue 1 will note that Ibra can handicap PSG at times. He limits the dynamism that they have, the way that those front three move and pop up in different places, particularly Griezmann and Benzema. I mean, Valbuena, they're incredibly mobile, and they work really well together as a front three. If Benzema is we know that he's going to be suspended at this point far out, then if I were Deschamps, I could perhaps think about using a different system. But to have a starting 11 that's pretty much settled and has been using this tactical system for quite some time, I think that in and of itself is too risky of a move. I'd rather prefer to see Martial replace Benzema in a straight swap, were he to miss the tournament.
Me too.
Myself.
It's an interesting conversation to keep having, especially with his form at the moment and Martial not scoring as many as he started with. But we will see as the tournament sort of progresses how they decide to get on. But that's all for this week from us. My thanks to Eric and Philip, and to all of you at home for tuning in. And finally, Gianni Infantino thank you, Gianni Infantino, for doing all the hard work this week. It'll be strange not to see him next week, I think. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.